Hi, Andrew Marty here. I'm the Managing Director of SACS Consulting, and by profession I'm a psychologist. And I'm here to tell you today about a discovery in the world of psychology which I think you might be interested in. You know, we're heavily into psychological assessment, and the reason that we are is that there's a massive evidence that this can markedly improve organisations. And so what we want to do is to tell you of some evidence that we've discovered in recent times about the relationship between personality, a person's personality, their value set, and whether they are likely to do bad things to either their colleagues once you hire them or to you as an organisation. And so what we did is we undertook a study where we surveyed in excess of 1,200 people, around about half male and half female. Now these people this study wasn't done in a laboratory, it was done in real live workplaces across Australia, an incredibly wide range of sectors. Now 1,200 is a big sample, certainly big enough to be normative, but what we want to do is to explain a little bit further what we did by showing you the diagram on the next slide. And so the diagram shows you a range of 10 areas of what are known as counterproductive work behaviours. Counterproductive work behaviours are really people doing bad things either to their colleagues, so you'll see that there are some things there listed as incivility, not getting on with other people, those kind of things. So they're bad things done to colleagues. But there are also bad things that people do to organisations, things like theft, things like ignoring OH&S policies and practices, things like not attending work when you're really not sick enough to be taking a sick day. Now, if you look at all of those things, they fit into these two categories: interpersonal, crimes against the individual, and organisational, bad deeds against the organisation. So our question was, our research question, could we predict a person's doing of these bad things by virtue of their personality and their value set? So what do we mean by value set? Let's look at the next slide, which shows you the diagram that outlines the Schwartz Personal Values Questionnaire. This is from the groundbreaking research of Professor Schwartz, and Schwartz found that there are 10 values that people tend to pursue, irrespective of where in the world they come from. These are 10 really common, consistent values. And these values are, in effect, goals. Now, I won't go through all of them in detail. We have another video that explains this model in more detail. But for instance, power seekers are people who have the goal of achieving power either over other people or over resources. You'll see that there are also things like benevolence. So people who are benevolent tend to have a goal of seeking to help people that they come in contact with. Interestingly, values tend to be largely learned, whereas over the next page we'll show you a model of personality, and that's Ashton's Hexaco. Now, research has shown that personality has a very strong heredity component that tends to have a very strong genetic component to it. And you'll see that what Ashton discovered when they did their groundbreaking work in the middle 2000s to examine exactly what personality is, they found 6 dominant characteristics. And that's how the Hexaco name came about. H for honesty, humility, E for emotionality, X for extroversion, A for agreeableness, C for conscientiousness, and O for openness to experience. In another video we explain this model much more, but I think what we really want to do today is to look at the results of this very interesting and I think very exciting research. So the next slide shows you the mathematical model that we used to examine the question of whether personality and values can predict counterproductive work behaviours. That's when you see CWB, counterproductive work behaviours means employees doing bad thing. This slide relates to total counterproductive work behaviours, bad deeds directed to employees and bad deeds directed to the organisation. And so that's why you've got total CWB in the middle box. Now down the left-hand side you have the Schwartz Personal Values Questionnaire at the bottom results, and you have personality results in the form of Hexaco. Now the model summary at the top really answers the question as to whether those things on the left can predict the thing in the middle, and the answer is yes, with 45% accuracy. Where it says adjusted R square, we're highlighting it now, that is the accuracy of personality and values predicting total counterproductive work behaviours. 45%. Now, if you look at the bottom diagram, you'll find that there are 4 things there that prove to be accurate predictors of counterproductive work behaviours. The first is a personality characteristic called gentleness, which says that people who are gentle, not harsh, tend not to do bad things to their colleagues. Fairness, if people are fair-minded, they tend not to do bad things to their colleagues. Conformity is a value, not a personality characteristic. And conformity is the degree to which people are prepared to respect rules. And it turns out that conformity, the Schwartz Personal Values Questionnaire item, conformity is a great predictor of whether people are likely to do bad things. And finally, you'll see diligence. Diligence is about the degree to which people are hardworking, committed, and energetic. So, if you look at the next slide, we ask the question about interpersonal counterproductive work behaviours. So is it possible to predict whether people will snub people, bully people, ignore people? And the answer is yes, because you'll see the adjusted R-square is pretty close to 40%, 39.9%. Now, the predictors in this occasion, sociability. Sociability is an extroversion characteristic as to whether people are likely to like people, to want to be with them. People who are high in that tend not to do bad things to their colleagues. Modesty. If people are modest, that's the opposite of being arrogant. What it suggests is that arrogant people are more likely to do bad things to their colleagues. Once more, the value of conformity. Then we move on to a personality characteristic called fairness, which is an honesty, humility characteristic. Fairness means people being fair-minded, and just like in the overall counterproductive work behaviours, that's a predictor. And finally, forgiveness. And what forgiveness means is the tendency not to hold a grudge. If people are dispositionally forgiving, they tend to be less likely to do bad things to their colleagues. Then let's look at organisational counterproductive work behaviours and ask the question as to whether we can predict those by a combination of a person's personality and their values. And the answer once more is yes. 38% nearly of these counterproductive work behaviours can be predicted by personality and values. And the key predictors are diligence, gentleness, fairness, organisation, which is a conscientiousness characteristic, and a thing called conformity once more, the value set. So 4 personality measures and a value. Now, I think one of the things that's interesting is that you'll see that the interpersonal counterproductive work behaviours were predicted by more interpersonally orientated types of characteristics, whereas the organisational counterproductive work behaviours are predicted by things like conscientiousness, how committed, how energised, how focused are people on their job, as well as whether they're prepared to follow the rules. So, can you predict counterproductive work behaviours from a combination of personality and values? Well, the answer is emphatically yes. And you might like to find out a little bit more about the research. If so, you can click on a link underneath this video and download a white paper which will tell you exactly what we found. But if you'd like to avail yourself of this service, there's another link which says how to buy. Click on that and we'll show you exactly how to avail yourself of this service.